Hi, I'm Diane Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest, homesteading tech executive, teaching families how to build land base, and of course, digital wealth for lasting freedom. No other than Miss Makeda Boehm.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Makeda. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Makeda. I like to say a homesteading tech mom. And what that means is I still work in tech, but I also homestead on my land. I'm also the founder of Seed and Society, which is a platform for sovereignty, homesteading, while also integrating AI strategy. Yeah.
Yes, Miss Makeda Boehm. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about journey to have a 1 million in sales, building a mortgage-free and 10-acre life. I like that, Miss Makeda. And tell us, what is the turning point where you realize I can actually hit, oh, sorry, 1 million sales?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm in tech sales. So that's software as a service. I work for a tech company. Previous In my previous role, I sold HR technology to higher education institutions, so colleges, universities. And now I sell to government entities. Government to help them connect with their citizens, us, more, and to make sure that they have digital transformation. So, in my role in tech sales, I sold to date about in the past 4 years about 10 million in sales, and I've earned about a million in commissions.
Congratulations, Miss
Thank you.
Makeda. I want that 1 million too. So what's the biggest so what's the biggest misconception about earning your first million?
Yeah, I think that people think that if you have a million, it should be flashy. What I've learned, I actually live in a town with no stoplights, and there's a lot of farmers out here and cattle farmers and people who own. I own 10 acres. I know people down the street who own like 2,000 acres, and they are millionaires. There's even a billionaire in town, and you'd never guess that by looking at them. They don't drive a flashy car, they drive their truck. They don't wear super expensive flashy shoes, or they'll buy sturdy shoes. You're still wearing a t-shirt. I feel like when you get to a point of understanding how much effort it takes, which I think everyone does effort. I think that it's just as hard. I used to be a teacher, just as hard, if not harder in some ways, to do other professions. But I feel like once you get to that point where you're trying to actually build wealth, and especially for me, I have two children, generational wealth, it becomes a lot less about looking rich versus being rich, or not even rich, just like having wealth. And I think that wealth isn't just money, it's also time freedom. It's time to spend, time with your children, actually see them grow. It's security in knowing that you are in control of your life and that you're authentically yourself. So it encompasses all of that. Money just really helps you to get some of those resources,
Mm.
and then that's why I homestead, start to grow my own food and do all of that so that we aren't constantly on the hamster wheel chasing the next thing per se.
Did you have any day job when it started, or did you go all in your business?
Yeah, so this wasn't my business with making it. I'm an employee. I work for a company. My business is birthed out of understanding, like, hey, I've made close to half a million last year. However, my income was only coming from one place. And my husband, he's owned a business for like 15 years, a recording studio. But for me, it was very much a wake up call. Just seeing what happens in America, seeing what's happening in tech, how people are getting laid off. And even if that wasn't the case, like people have always gotten laid off. And if you only have one source of income, and I think of a 401k as one source still because you can't really pull out of it, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure
Yeah.
because if one thing happens, then you don't have any other flow. And that is where Seed in Society was born to really help focus on, again, asset based wealth and having multiple streams of revenue. And honestly, having revenue that comes in even while you're sleeping. Because if you're constantly trading your time for income, it's just not sustainable. And I'm a big believer in keeping your day job, as I call it, especially if it's a career that you're really aligned with. It's not an either or thing. I think a lot of times, a lot of entrepreneurs and founders glorify almost the struggle, or if you don't go all in, then you don't really mean it. And I think, especially with the advent of AI, that you're able to do a lot more in less time, and you can do both.
So let's talk about the sales and business strategy, Ms. Makeda. What's the number one strategy that drove your sales growth?
Yeah, I can always say, like, staying curious, actually asking questions. I think a lot of times with sales, and I'll see this at all level of sales, whether it's shoes or a computer or books, whatever, that people are so busy trying to tell you what their thing can do that they don't actually sit down and ask you, what is it that you're looking for? Specific example of that is we were buying a mattress, my husband and we went to the mattress store. And our number one criteria for a mattress is we want one that is extremely soft. And our salesperson kept telling us about the mattresses that were very cool, like cool to the touch. And we don't even care about that. And I think that's a really great illustration of the difference between enterprise sales and high level sales is actually getting to know your customer and their needs and their wants, not what you think they want or what they should want.
How did you price your product services or maximize profit without losing customers?
Yeah, so again, it's the company that does that. I do work for companies that are valued in the hundreds of millions. So they think about that strategy very well. I will say that, again, listening to your customer, even within my product, just even with my ecosystem as a founder who is largely pre-revenue, and some, like, I have some passive things coming in. A big reason why is because you take feedback. You should always be iterating, you should always be asking what's working, and everything is feedback. Whether you hear nothing at all or you hear a lot. If you're hearing nothing, then that also is a sign to iterate. But one thing that I stress as a keynote speaker and in my keynote speeches is that action is what creates confidence, and it creates evidence so that you can get outcomes. So it's really about not just sitting there and thinking about it, it's about doing it, because the faster you do something, the faster you can learn and get feedback so that you can pivot or stay the course.
Let's talk about the mindset, Ms. Makeda. Mindset and hustle. How do you stay motivated during slow periods or setbacks?
Yeah, always my children. For me, like, everything for me changed with having children. I think a lot of times we have this perception that children actually slow down your career or slow down your hustle. And absolutely, in the sense of your body, especially if you're a birthing individual, in some ways, your body needs time to reflect. But I think that it also, for me, was my competitive advantage. Becoming a mom and then a nursing mom, um, for me, was I just felt like everything I do and the steps I take, I need to be more strategic in order to make sure that they have the best life that they can. As somebody who was on their own at 16 and has experienced homelessness, I truly just understood like that the world isn't always super kind. There's very kind people, but it's not always kind. And out of everybody who I owe it to do well, it's the children who I brought into this world.
Miss Makeda, how did you balance risk taking with financial stability in your journey?
Yeah, I talk about this a bit in my podcast as well in Seed in Society, where, I graduated with a lot of student loans, and conventional financial wisdom would tell you to pay that off, then save up, then buy a house with a mortgage, and then, pay that off over 30 years. And what we did instead was we bought our property mortgage free, even while we still had student loan debt, because we understood that that would give us leverage, that that would give us options, and that it would satisfy our basic human need for shelter. Especially if you're in the US, it's technically like illegal to be homeless and to not have resources. So that was how I balanced it, as this is a risk, but also there's so much more reward. And I talk about that a lot with founders and business owners, just making sure that they understand strategic debt and understand investment versus, just feeling like you're throwing money away. But if you're purchasing an asset and you're getting assets, something that can give you back resources, then it's usually worth it, within reason.
It's worth it, people. So, Miss Makeda, as a Homestead Dean Tech, as well as podcast host, what are your short term and long term goals?
Yeah, so my long-term goal is to help people actually gain time freedom and authentic freedom. And what I mean by that is helping people to access the resources that they need so that they're able to do what they're passionate about. When I say retire by 40, I don't mean that I'm not going to work, because I enjoy work. I enjoy doing things, I have passions, but I mean that I have the freedom to say yes to what I want to say yes to and not do things that I don't necessarily want to do. And my goal, my long term goal, is to help as many people as possible with that, to truly believe in their abilities and self and know that they have everything that they need inside to make their lives and their dreams and their goals possible, that they don't need to keep searching outward for it, that there's just enough information and there's enough ways for them to do that, and all they need to do is start. From my short-term goals, it's
Mhm.
really about, really just building Seed in Society, making sure people understand it, doing more keynote speeches. I'm writing a book, The Connector Method, so that's gonna be coming out, which is exactly what I've been talking about, like, having confident action, getting the life that you want with what you have, and just having that pattern recognition and connecting, like, what you've done and what you've been through with the skills that it's given you so that you can, use your unique story to make the life that you want. And I just, again, I feel very passionate about that, short term and long term, and really long term legacy for my children, to know that they have options and that I'm setting the example for them that I can feel proud of.
A legacy indeed, and good luck to your goals,
Thank
Miss
you.
Makeda, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Honestly, start. We just live in a world now where if you have internet and you have access to internet, then you have access to almost everything. Stay curious, stay in a growth mindset, never think that you know everything. Once you think you know everything, you have already lost. Every single person you meet knows minimum 10 things you don't know, and if they speak another language, add another million on that. Times that by 8 billion people, that is literally trillions of things you don't know. So, you just have to continue to grow and try, and what you do know is of value to the world. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't know nothing or you don't know enough. What you know is special to you as well. And I guarantee you, someone else out in the world wants to know that. And we live in a creator economy, which is valued projected to be valued close to half a trillion dollars by 2027. So there's no way that you can't make money off of that as well, or get the resources you need, whether that's housing, food, security, whatever it is. You have that power. Yeah.
Definitely, you have that power, people. Stop procrastinating and go, go, go. If you have something to share to the world, please do so. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. So anything from Audre Lorde. When people say if you could meet anybody alive or dead, previous to last year when I lost my mom, so now it's 1,000,000% my mom if I could have dinner, but before that, it was Audre Lorde. Just anything that she has written, especially Poetry Is Not a Luxury, truly, it's something that I sit with, that I reread, that I go over, and, she is just incredible. She passed away the year, I was born actually, which is 1992. However, her work is timeless. It really just talks about demanding joy out of your life, like not giving in to the mediocrity of society and being unintentional, because the unintentional are is a luxury, 'cause being mediocre is a luxury only the unintentional can afford. And I think as well, just from a perspective of a Black woman who had so many binaries and intersectionalities in her identity and in her journey, everything she writes is just it's just extremely transformative to me. I love everything she writes, and I always recommend it.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Makeda. And what skill you had to learn the hard way that's now non negotiable for success?
Oh, action. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, asking questions. And I know that sounds like multiple skills, but they all are connected to each other. You are never going to walk into any situation knowing everything there is to know about something, even if you've done it for 50 years. So I guess if I had to distill it down to a single skill, it again is staying curious.
Action, people, and be curious always. If you had to start over with $1,000 today, what is the first thing you do?
That is a great question. The first thing that I would do is make some content. I would put out content. I make these things called connectors, and actually sit there and get some affiliate links going on and share that content daily. I would, from a living perspective, if I had $1,000 and nowhere else to go, I would genuinely invest in a tent. I would invest in a tent, some seeds, some soil, and grow my food and live off of beans and rice until some of that food was growing, And if I could get $100, $200 computer, I would definitely spend it and get that and go to internet cafes, go to anywhere that has Wi-Fi and document this journey and say, I have $1,000 to my name. This is how I'm surviving. And I guarantee you, people would tune in and want to know about it. They'd want to support you. They would be around it because that would be an incredible skill and anyone would want to know. And if you could do it on $1,000, it stops everyone else from making excuses as to why they cannot.
Incredible indeed. And how has living on your terms changed your definition of success?
I think just being authentic, like literally when you aren't necessarily as worried, and I'm not going to say like I'm free from that, but when you're not necessarily as worried about what other people think and your like survival doesn't depend on group acceptance, you're then able to actually think about what actually makes me happy versus what was I doing because this was the socially acceptable thing or this is what I expected other people to want. I think it becomes very clear that you cannot make everybody happy. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Somebody can love peppermint and someone can hate peppermint. And it just doesn't matter what you do. And if you're trying to make everyone happy, you're making yourself the most unhappy. So if you can just truly be kind, wish well in the world, and understand that people aren't going to always have the same opinions as you, but as long as they're not hurting anyone, um, then they like everyone should be able to exist as is. And I think that just being on my own terms has allowed me to like sink into that even more.
Definitely. Very well said, Miss Makeda. Truly, truly empowering. What's your top tip for someone who wants financial freedom but feels stuck?
Action. Not to be a dead horse, but, truly, just get started. That thing that you thought about, that idea that you had before you thought about what the anybody around you would think, before you thought that someone would call it stupid, before you thought about what people might say, nobody who is actually doing anything with their lives have time to sit around and poo-poo on your idea. I saw a quote the other day that I thought was just that encapsulates this perfectly. An athlete is never going to judge you for going into the gym. A millionaire is never going to judge you for starting a business. I think that people get so worried about what other people may think that they don't do anything and they stay in stagnation and they stay in unhappiness and then they have regrets. Um, when people are on their deathbed, overwhelmingly, they don't regret the things that they did, they regret the things they didn't do. So get started. Do something that makes you happy and actually follow your passion, what makes you feel good on the inside.
Miss Makeda, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast. People, my other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and my Book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my Baby Podcast Law 101, and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in its third season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Makeda, if you could only share one lesson from your 1 million to land journey, what would it be?
Honestly, get started, that you can do it. That is my lesson, that you can do it. You can do that thing you dream about. You can do that thing that keeps you up at night, that keeps coming back in your head over and over again, and you're just not sure about it. You can do that. And you can follow your dreams. You are worthy of your time. You're worthy of your dreams.
Yes, indeed. You can do it, people. Action, action, action. As Miss Makeda Bowen telling us. So, Miss Makeda, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your project, or anything that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find it at seedandsociety.com. There we have our connectors market, anything with my keynotes, I, find wherever I'm doing an event. And then you can also always check the Seed and Society podcast and the Seed and Society YouTube channel, where I put up these ideas as well and show you, just life on the homestead and different financial tips and tricks and what it is that I do.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Makeda Boehm because if you support her for sure, more and more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself, more and more 1 million or 3 billions to come. So, Miss Makeda, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
More to come, people. See you soon.